Hello everybody, it's Michael here again with your next installment of the supply and demand market report. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all preparing well for your Christmas holidays. It's almost upon us, so if you haven't got those presents, get them. Alright, so we're going to go straight into the charts, but before we do, again, wanted to say a big thank you to all of you who continue to support the channel. If you haven't subscribed and you're watching the video or you've just stumbled upon it, please subscribe, and we will continue to post more useful content here. Thank you to all of you for the feedback that you've given on the market. So we're going to go into our usual charts. I haven't changed anything since the last video, and a lot of the ideas we talked about seem to have played out quite well, so I hope you all took advantage of that. Just a reminder again that this is just for educational purposes only, and it's not a recommendation to buy or sell anything in the markets. So as usual, we're going to start with the dollar, and we were looking at these charts a couple of weeks ago when we did the last video, saying that there had been some weakness that's come into the dollar, and we could see the selling coming in and supply being created up in there with the demand levels being removed. And we've since had a pullback from that level. Now you can see the level we marked off, that's still holding. It created some supply here, but then went through it as well, but remained in that general area and has made a further move down. So we're just going to update the chart now and again show that there is still selling coming into this market on the bigger time frames and the smaller time frames. So the dollar's looking to be a bit weak going into the end of the year. We haven't definitively turned this into a downtrend yet, but we have definitely stalled in the uptrend right here. So that would be interesting to see in the new year how the dollar pans out. All right, so let's go to the euro. All right, so we were looking at this level in the euro last time and this one below it as well. You can see that it's worked out quite well. The euro has created a move up. It still hasn't fully gone into an uptrend just yet. It is trying to trade off of these lows in here, but we are yet to turn it into an uptrend. We definitively stopped the down movement. But whether we're able to get enough traction, if the dollar does continue to fall, then for sure we're going to see this turn higher. It's showing positive signs. It's just not quite there yet, is what I'm seeing. We are creating, just updating the charts again, we have created a new demand zone in here, which is also going to be an area that traders around the world are going to be looking at if we do get a pullback down into it for buying opportunities. And this is now, quite heavily supported with further demand right below it. So watch these two areas going into this week and into the end of the year. Okay, moving swiftly on to the Aussie. Nothing much has changed in the Aussie. Again, a downtrend that's been stalled, but not much change to the upside yet. I hope you guys took this trade. We marked this out right here in these videos a couple of weeks ago. We were looking for a bounce trade and hoping that we didn't get too much supply. So you can see that the supply in here was really not great at all, and that's what facilitated the bigger move in price. So if quality supply had formed in here, it would have been much more difficult. But the fact that it didn't allowed this market to go out, and it's now moved deeper into the supply here. Now, if we look at the way prices have stayed up again into this level, and you can see the demand we marked out that we were saying was what we thought had resulted in the end of the previous uptrend with the removal of this demand. Notice where prices have not yet been able to get below. So you can be sure that people are using this as a sort of flip movement to try to hold prices up. So it's looking better for it. There will be supply up into this level up here. So you can be mindful of that as well, but it's the fact that it's holding here. If we get a move up, it's going to put this supply under threat, because any pullbacks or selling that we get from this area up here is going to have to deal with any buyers that are down here. But for now, it's a watch and see. I wouldn't be doing any aggressive selling into this area just because of the strength that's been shown, but I definitely wouldn't be buying either. So it's a hold, I guess, for the Aussie US. And in the pound, if you recall, we talked about the fact that, again, this market, even though it had reached supply, wasn't falling as much as one would have expected with an uptrend in place. And what has happened this week now is that we have now formed a big move up, which has left us with demand down into this level. So we now have demand right below us with a move up deeper into this level. It's not cleared it quite yet, so just be mindful of that. But if we do pull back, we are going to be looking at buying the pound against the US. Bear in mind the geopolitical events coming up in the UK this week. On the 12th, we have the general elections, so that's bound to have an impact on the price of the pound. So just be mindful of that. If you're not keen on trading in the news, then I would just stay away from this market for this week. It's going to be fairly volatile, I imagine. Okay, so let's go on to the New Zealand US. So the New Zealand US was not showing us that clear a picture the last time we were together, but now we have a much clearer picture where we now have demand zones being formed below as prices are moving higher and higher and taking out supply zones. Remember our gobbledygook area, nothing has happened with that area as we anticipated. Prices have just traded right through it because there was no quality there. The area that did have a little bit of quality in it was the last move had already happened, so there wasn't anything to stop this move up from happening in there. So now we have some demand. In fact, you could extend this level all the way down to here. We definitely have demand into that area now. So pullbacks will be likely bought. We need that. So if you imagine, if we play scenario, let's play scenario. So if you imagine this is what we want to see happen with this market for us to definitively go into the classic higher highs and higher lows. Supply and demand is quite good at identifying those movements as they are beginning. Notice that this hasn't happened yet, but we are already defining what we want to see for us to join that emerging uptrend quite early. Okay, and going to Bitcoin. Let's go to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, nothing has changed since we were last together. It hasn't reached the supply. It hasn't reached the demand on the bigger time frame. We're still in that movement down. It's not surprising that we've had a couple of weeks of consolidating because the move down was fairly aggressive. It was really torture for this market, whereas its selling just came in massively. So not too surprising that it's consolidated its gains for those who are short. Now the question is, if we pop higher, now I'll be favoring this level more than this level now. They're both still quality supply zones, but just because of the price action below here, I would favor this level. I will be watching this level primarily to see if there's enough of a profit margin if prices do pop up from where they are now into here. If there isn't, then I wouldn't be taking a trade off here. I'd be looking for the higher level. And if prices don't get to the higher level and they fall, then as usual I'll be looking on the dailies and smaller intraday time frames for selling opportunities. So that's the scenario for Bitcoin for those of you who trade it. And the S&P 500, we were here the last time we met, and you can see that level worked out. It's worked out a second time. Obviously this level, you could have extended the whole thing to include that. I just drew it in during the video to highlight you the area, and that area pretty much is held still. This market still continues to be clearly in an uptrend, so buying is still the higher probability event. For short-term income trading, I did post a chart of the NASDAQ onto the thread for those of you who are trading short-term income trading, and made the point that this level of supply that's come in is present on the S&P, the Dow, and we are into that level now. So anyone taking intraday trades, this is not the area to be looking to take long trades. You want to be looking for evidence of selling coming into the market and then looking for opportunities to join that selling, at least in the short term. In the long term, we're still pretty clearly up. Okay. And in the Russell 2000, we talked about this level being quite weak with the movements down not going as further as they used to, and the fact that we were hanging up into this area at the time. Now you can see that, as we suspected, obviously there was no way of knowing beforehand, but as we suspected, that level, the fact that prices were hanging around at that level was indicative to us that the likelihood of a move through that level was higher than a push down. So the next level of supply that the markets will have to deal with is up here. So there is room to go to the upside. And if we look at, we were looking at this level that we said worked for a little bit and has been traded through, but now we have new demand, which is into this level right here, and I'll just open that up. So we have a new demand zone there that will be interesting to keep an eye on in the coming week to join this move up. If we do get a pull back into that level, we have room to go to the upside there. Okay, and the 10-year note is still stuck. That supply zone has held. We were looking at this as a potential issue for it. It had a little bit of a bounce, nothing significant at all, and prices traded through it, but the supply continues to hold, which I suppose with hindsight is not too surprising, the fact that we are in weekly supply. My concern at the time was that yes, this market, the upside had stalled, but we had not managed to turn the market yet into a downtrend. So shorting in there would have been not ideal, but using confirmation would have been one way to do it. It turns out the embedded zone within that level is what has just continued to stop prices from rising further. They managed to get slightly higher than this level, but they've also fallen lower than the initial fall after this level was first reached. So it's a market that is trying to turn this uptrend all into a downtrend. There's a lot of distribution going on up in here. So we'll just be watching this one and see what evolves. But for now, buying is not ideal. Joining on the daily, there's no clear evidence of joining this market on the daily other than that one that's already worked out. There may be opportunities in here. In fact, let's take a quick look on the 4 hour or the 1 hour and see. So if we wanted to join this level, if we were sold on the sell side, so to speak, that's the area that I would be looking at. You have a little bit also still above it as well, supply there. So there are supply zones above you on the smaller time frame. So that those two levels I would watch on the 4 hour into here. The US dollar Canadian, the level we marked out for demand just at the end of the week, produced a big move. So I hope some of you caught that you had it marked in your charts. This level of supply that we talked about, which had already been hit by the time we did the last video, I think prices were up in here somewhere at the time, or getting close to it. I can't remember now, but they did result in that push back down, and we got the big bounce that we were looking for short-term income trading. For longer-term trading, there's still nothing happening in this market. It's still caught in that range. This level was just about low enough to allow us to take a trade off of it. Otherwise, down here is still the area that we'd be looking at. But for now, there's really nothing to do so far in this market for me. Yeah. And Japanese, US dollar Japanese, again, nothing really much to do. We talked about this level and the fact that prices were going up in the uptrend, showing strength, and this area was being worked through, and it came down and it went deeper into the level, but it came down again. So you still find that there are sellers in here. People are still trying to sell the US dollar, and with the weakness that we were talking about in the dollar index, you can understand why. So it's still a fairly undecided market. There are no clearly defined demand levels that we could really lean on and be clear on. If we were to look at shorter term income trading now on the daily, we're looking at this level down here, which is yet to be reached, and we are looking now at some supply in here. Now I'd rather the prices come up first before they go down, but I don't know how the markets will play out. I just mark the levels and I trade them as I see them. So for now, these are the two levels that we have around price for short-term income trading. Okay. And the US dollar Singapore, like I told you guys last week, it's one to watch for longs, given that we'd come to the bottom of this move after a big move out of it. We'd come to the demand zone. That demand zone is held. It's gone up, just about missed the supply, and it's pulled back again. We are still looking for longs in this area. It was barely touched the first time, and it's come back again the second time, giving us a second bite. So we are still fairly keen on the long side. Definitely not yet turning bearish on it, given what we're seeing on the big picture and the smaller time frame. If we go below this level, then for sure, then we will turn bearish. So that's what we want to see. For us to really turn bearish in the round table if we go below this level. For now, it's a case of playing the range that we're in. And for WTI, nothing really exciting for now. But last week we did have the move, the trade in there that went all the way back down to the origins. The demand held, the supply held. Now we've gone through that supply, so we can update our chart. So in terms of demand, it will be down in here on a smaller time frame that you want to look, because this market is showing strength to the upside now. In the long term, we're still caught in a range. We still have the supply above here that is yet to be removed, but we are seeing strength coming in. Every time they've tried to sell it off on the smaller time frame, we've gone back up and pushed through the sellers. So watch for any pullbacks in here. Might be an idea to get long. In fact, let's do it quickly. Look for a 4 hour, nothing key, maybe a 1 hour, give us a better picture. Okay, so here's for those of you maybe interested in it, here's a level for you to consider in oil. If we do get a pullback into that area, there's a level to consider for oil. It's not as low as I would like it to be. You may want to also wait for confirmation lower down, but if you're looking for the set and forget, that's one level to consider for sure. In fact, I probably will be taking that trade myself. And looking at silver, nothing much has changed. We didn't get to the supply that we were talking about. We're still seeing weakness into this market on the bigger picture, and we've now got new supply being created in this market into this level, which is going to be an issue for the buyers in here and limit the profit margin that they're going to have, at least in the short term. So still a wait and watch for silver. If we get a pullback up here, you may want to look at selling some silver in here against the US dollar. And looking at gold did go to the supply that we talked about, and that's worked out very nicely. I hope you guys got some of that, which is very nice. And we are now into some demand into here. So again, we're not in an area where we should be trying to join the selling. If anything, if the most appropriate thing will be to start to look to see if this thing stabilizes in here and starts to go on higher to join the long trade. In the longer term, you can see that we are still in that sort of profit-taking mode after such a big move up. This market moved up quite a lot, and it's just literally come down a little bit. So not too much in the way of aggressive selling. So this may be an aggressive buy, because we would have liked to see a much clearer these pivot highs being taken out for us to definitively say that the profit taking is over. So this may be an aggressive long, but it's definitely not a short right here. Not yet anyway, for the way that we trade. I'm sure that will be different for other methodologies as well. And I had a request for looking at the Turkish market, so I've added it today for us to take a quick look at the Turkish market, and I'm going to open it up. So this is the Turkish stock market, I believe it is. So we are going to just do the usual supply and demand analysis of that. So we are here, we are where we are. In fact, you could widen that zone right like that, and that will be the supply that prices are currently dealing with. We've got some demand in here. This market is clearly in an uptrend now. We've got momentum to the upside. So in the longer term picture, you want to be looking for potential buying opportunities, especially, I don't know if your eyes have caught it, but you will notice, I'm just looking for the best tool. We have come through this sort of whole sideways movement and are trying to break out of it. It would be nice to get a bigger candle to definitively break out of it. If we get a move out that breaks out of this supply, then you may find that new demand is going to be formed right here, which would be very nice because it would be the area of the breakout above this range. So we could be entering into a stage 2, what we call a stage 2 in price movement now with a breakout. If this does happen, for now it's showing decent enough strength, not quite a big enough move yet for us to be looking at this area as demand. So the nearest demand is back into the range in there. Now looking at the daily chart, the daily chart is showing us rally-based rallies with gaps to the upside. We are gapping into an area of potential supply, so be mindful of that. Let's open that daily up and let's go look at where we're gapping into. So we are gapping into that. We will have buyers here and here. So overall, this market is not in a good place to be bought up in here. These are potentially good places to buy. Ideally, the ideal scenario would be that you get this kind of move first for you to be able to even have a better profit margin to buy pullbacks into here. For now, the pullback from here, if we come back straight away, is not that great because the move away is not that great. So the lower zone is favored in this scenario, and the lower zone would tally into this sort of breakout region as well. So that's what I'm looking at. If you're going to be aggressive, to summarize, if you're going to be aggressive and you're anticipating there's going to be a breakout from this supply, then this lower zone is what I would be focused on. If you're more conservative and more willing to wait, then you want to wait for a removal of the supply here and then buying pullbacks again still to this area, but this area also will now be even better placed as well. So that's what I see for the Turkish market. So again, if you had any particular markets you wanted me to look at, just email me. It's storehouseanalytics@gmail.com and I'll add it to our list. We can build the list together. These are the markets I primarily look at, and we look at on the roundtable. We look at a whole load of markets on the roundtable. Of course, I can show you the list that we often go through. Not every single one, but particularly the currencies in there. For some of us who trade the US markets, we have some of the markets in there as well that we go through. So it can be quite a lot. So again, storehouseanalytics@gmail.com if you wanted to find out about the mentoring service or just to ask a question about a chart, just email me. All right, I'll see you guys hopefully again before Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas. Enjoy the planning, enjoy the family, and we'll talk later. Trade well, trade safe. Bye for now.